Directors of Disaster Preparedness to hear from them what has been done in preparation for the hurricane and what remains to be done ahead of the expected landfall of Beryl sometime on Wednesday, although the Met Service says by Wednesday morning we should be able to feel the rainfall associated with the hurricane. All that in a one-hour edition of Lead Story, which begins now. All right, welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. So as I said at the top, we're talking about Hurricane Beryl, Category 5 hurricane that is taking dead aim at Jamaica. There is no doubt that Jamaica will get a significant impact from Beryl. Whether or not the eye passes directly over the island is another matter, because the system is moving slowly at about 22 miles per hour, according to the latest bulletin from the Met Service. And at that speed, you don't know what changes the storm will take and where the change will take it in terms of the track over the island. What we're certain of is that whatever happens and however it drifts, the southeastern part of the island ought to be feeling the impacts by Wednesday morning. And as we look at our system tracker on the screen there, so you can see the rotating point is where the eye of Beryl is at about 5 p.m. when the Met Service issued its latest bulletin. That rotating point was about 420 miles away from Kingston. That's to the east of Kingston. So 420 miles east of Kingston, or east-southeast, or maybe my cardinal points getting mixed up, but you get the general drift. Yeah? So I did say east-southeast. So there you go. I'm right. Thank you very much, my producer, for validating my claim. So east-southeast of Jamaica, 420 miles away from Kingston. And on the current track, you can see where it's set to hit the island. The Cayman Islands are also in Beryl's path, and what they don't want, the Cayman Islands, is for it to drift, for the system to go in a northwards direction, which takes it over more of the Jamaican landmass, and then for it to continue in that track, because then it would hit the Cayman Islands directly. On the current path, it will brush the southeastern tip of Jamaica with winds, and the winds, the winds will extend about 40 miles away from the eye of the storm. And although we know about the eye of the storm and the danger it poses, the winds around the eye are also devastating potentially. So yes, Jamaica, the southeastern tip, will get the brunt of it. And then as it moves past Jamaica on Wednesday evening into Thursday morning, the Cayman Islands should be in for some heavy showers before the storm goes further west to die in the Yucatan Peninsula near or around Mexico. So that's the current track that the storm is on. And yeah, as things stand, we are bracing for the worst of the impact. The roads, there was chaos on the roads earlier on this Wednesday, this Tuesday rather, as people flocked to supermarkets and to plazas to try and get some last-minute shopping going. Even though the school is out, there was still a lot of traffic on the road. Images that I saw on social media from supermarkets across the island showing only certain items in huge supply. Majority of items gone, cheese sticks gone, bread gone, crackers gone. The bakeries that are in the corporate area filled with people, causing traffic to back up on the road as people sought to get baked products at the last minute. The situation at gas stations also bad as people flocked there to get petrol in their cars. And I always ask the question, when you fill your car with petrol during a hurricane where there's mass destruction and devastation, where are you going to drive to? But people just love having the feeling of having petrol in their cars. And as one man told me earlier this week elsewhere, he said, well, look, George, the fact is that in a period of heavy rain or hurricane conditions, the car becomes your refuge, because when the power goes out in your house and it is miserable, it is hot, you can bring your family into the car, switch that car on, enjoy the air conditioning, you can listen to the radio, you can charge your phone, you can have some light inside the car. So it's almost like a mobile home that you are moving to and getting relief from the conditions in your house. So that's why we fill up our vehicles with petrol at the service station. I think that just goes for him and a few others. Most people fill their tanks up so that they can move, but my question is, to where are you moving? I have some guests this evening to speak to, and we're going to be talking to a few of them, and of course taking a bit of what the Prime Minister has to say at his press conference that, well, in his address to the nation that he is delivering, was expected to deliver between 2 and 5 today, but we're well beyond 2 o'clock, well beyond 5 o'clock, and we haven't heard from the Prime Minister yet. The chairman of the chairman of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Dennis Chung, is standing by to speak to me. Before I go to him, I want to show you a shot of where the Prime Minister, well, this is outside. This is outside from Broadcast House, and this is our drone camera showing us the streets of the corporate area. And there's not much traffic on the road. Look at the gaps on the road as the cars move. That's unusual, as everybody would know who knows Kingston. That is highly unusual for this time of day. Usually it's bumper-to-bumper traffic, and the traffic snakes throughout the streets of the corporate area. You're looking at Constant Spring Road. Are you seeing halfway? Well, if you see the arch in the background, that's the Halfway Tree Transport Center. So effectively, you're looking at the Constant Spring Road all the way from the intersection with West Kings House Road down into the heart of Halfway Tree, where you have the slew of shops on both sides of the road. Then you go down to the transport center on the right, and then if you look beyond all of that, you can see the sea. So we're not far from where the storm will pass in terms of the location track. And usually, if you look beyond the built environment, you can see the sky outlined there. You're seeing grayness, which suggests that there is rain at sea already, and the Met Service looks to be getting it spot on in terms of its tracking when it says that rain should visit Jamaica early on Wednesday morning. It appears as if the rain is already on the high seas. All right. The PM, I'm being told by my producer, is set to address the nation around about 6:45 p.m. this evening. But for now, we'll crack on and speak to the man who is in charge of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. From the board perspective, it does have an operations lead in Richard Thompson, but Dennis Chung is the man who oversees the work of ODPEM from the board level, chairman of the board of directors, and he joins me on Zoom this evening. Dennis, welcome to Lead Story.
You hear me?
You know, I'm hearing you now. You just unmuted yourself. All right, what can you tell the nation in terms of the latest update insofar as the work that ODPEM has been able to do to get us ready for the pending Hurricane Category 5 Beryl?
Yeah, well, I have been talking to the Acting Director General over the past few days, from last week, in fact. We have put the action in place. The ODPEM, as you know, is really the secretariat for organizing all the response services. So, for example, the Met Office will lead in weather, in terms of health-related issues, this Ministry of Health, in terms of securities, police, emergency service and rescue, it's fire. And what we do is we sort of coordinate all of the services, ensure also that the communication happens with the municipal councils, and that the supplies are available throughout the country and stationed throughout the country. Because when something like this happens, you can't really drive around. So we have to have supplies all over the country, and we have to have different people ready to get those supplies out. I think the ODPEM has done, and also the authorities and the government has done all that can be done right now. As I said, from last week, they have been working to organize everything. They've had the several meetings, and they've put into effect the provisions under the Disaster Risk Management Act. There's nothing really more that we can do. I think that people now need to ensure that they listen to the bulletins that come out, listen to the press releases, ensure that if your structure is not safe, if you don't feel safe in it, go to one of the shelters or go to somewhere else where you'll be safe, because lives are more important than the material possessions right now.
Yeah, on the point of shelters, I want to come back to that, but I want to ask a question of you, Dennis Chung, that's not often asked in these circumstances, and that is the ODPEM staff who will be on the ground and expected to respond when Beryl comes to the worst that is happening to lead people out of danger. I want to ask about the training of the staff and their suitability to be undertaking danger of a nature that most of us would shy away from.
Yeah, the staff would have gone through training. The staff is well aware of what needs to happen. So I'm confident in their abilities to do it. One of the things that has been addressed by the Prime Minister and certainly the Minister and also the head of the JDF is that people need to take heed before the actual event, because you're not going to endanger the lives of the rescue personnel during the height of the storm, right? Because it's going to be very dangerous out there. I mean, it's projected to pass us as a category 4 to 3, high 3 to 4. Gilbert was a category 3, and you know the devastation that had caused was significant. So, you know, while people are trained to do that, we don't think that people are going to be going out within in the midst of the heights of the storm. Of course, there is response mechanism set up after in terms of preparedness for it. I think all that can be done. I've spoken to the Acting Director General several times today, and really and truly, we're at the point where you just have to wait and see what happens, and make sure that you're prepared.
Yeah, on the point of shelters, yesterday when Richard Thompson stopped by for a quick update, he did say that the shelters weren't open as yet. But you said something very instructive. Is it that if I live in a traditionally vulnerable area, say I'm up in Gordon Town, or which is in East Rural St. Andrew, or I'm up in Lawrence Tavern, which is in West Rural St. Andrew. Those areas are prone to land slippage, and when the debris falls, roads get blocked, people are marooned, and it becomes difficult to function until the authorities clear the area and you're able to move around. Along with other vulnerable spots in Jamaica, you can think of Portland Cottage in Clarendon. Is it that those people, and Port Royal, is it that these people, those residents, Dennis Chung, in these traditionally vulnerable communities, at this stage, they've seen the Med Service tracker, they've watched other things, they've listened to other things, they've read the bulletins from the Med Service, they know that Beryl is going to hit us and is going to hit us hard. Can they take the preemptive step of going to the shelter in their community or nearby, or they have to wait until a certain time for ODPEM to say, okay, shelters are now accessible? Explain that part for us.
The last time I spoke with Richard, I got the impression that they were open now. So, I mean, I would think that they would want to make their way to it now. I mean, we're going to start feeling the effect in the morning, right? I can't say definitively which ones are open, but I know when I spoke with him, he said that the shelter should be open by now. So I would say that people should start making preparations to move. We don't have a lot of time. You know, it is going to start impacting us tomorrow morning. And, you know, we're going to feel the full effect about 1 p.m. tomorrow. So, you know, make the preparation from now.
Dennis, I want to give you the chance to speak to Jamaicans directly on this point. The point of expectations, because there are many people who will go to a shelter and expect the conditions to be almost similar to what they enjoy at home. And if it's not so, because it cannot be so, it's a shelter, they'll get upset, they'll be rowdy, they'll be disruptive, they'll prove difficult to manage for the shelter managers and the security personnel present there, and this can cause a bad experience, not just for them and the shelter manager, but for others in these shelters. So speak to people for me about what they should expect at these shelters and how they are expected to conduct themselves in that kind of emergency setting.
Well, you're right, George. I mean, the shelter is definitely not going to be as comfortable as they are at home. That's not the purpose. The purpose for it is to ensure that your life is safe. And that's the important thing. So when you go there, you're not going to get the luxuries that you have at home. And you know, people just have to understand and bear with it. Of course, there's a lack of resources also, as you know. That's always an issue with us as a country. And, you know, I ask that people just go there and make the best of it. Make sure that you go there and protect yourself, protect your children. In fact, the shelter might even be better than some of the homes, because you know, George, that a lot of places are going to be much more dangerous than the shelter. The shelter is really just to protect life.
Hear you on that. Dennis, hold the line there, stay where you are rather, and we will come back and continue this conversation. This is Lead Story, speaking with the chairman of ODPEM as we all sit and wait for Beryl. Welcome back to Lead Story. Looking at a live shot of Constant Spring Road towards the north, you're seeing vehicles turning left onto Dunrobin Avenue, the intersection of Constant Spring Road and Dunrobin Avenue. And then in the near ground, the red and white building, that's Phil's Hardware as you head up Constant Spring Road. And look how Spartan the traffic on these streets is. The situation is very, very Spartan. Not many people out, and those who are out are heading home quickly. That's a JUTC bus you see making that turn onto Dunrobin, no doubt bringing home the last of the workers who should have left work from about 12 noon earlier today. All right, Dennis Chung, the chairman of ODPEM, is with me for a few more minutes. Dennis, the issue of shelters and shelter managers and the contact information, you and I know that we're going to be talking about this thing, and we've spoken about it on, well, I've heard several media houses publish the information already, but people always were calling to ask, where can I find the information? So, where can people find information about where their shelters are located, even though it should be obvious to them in their communities, but how to contact the shelter managers? Where's that information, with the contact information, the names and the locations?
I don't have that, George, but what I can say is that if you go to the ODPEM site, I'm sure it will be there.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Not for you to have it on at your fingertips, but just where they can go to find it.
I'm saying in terms of where the official place is.
Yes.
Right? I don't have that information, but I'm sure it will be all over. Certainly, you know, if people are in doubt, contact, for example, your member of parliament office.
Or your parish council, your council, your municipal corporation.
Parish council,
yes.
Right. Also go on the website, the social media pages of ODPEM. You know, you'll find that there. I will ensure when I come off the phone with you that the information is sent out to all of these places. I'll talk to Richard. But I'm sure that it's all over. Yeah. You know, they would have made those provisions.
You said something earlier that I just want to ask you before we wrap, Dennis. The issue of people not putting themselves in highly compromised situations so that if they have to be rescued, then the rescue workers can have a fair chance of taking them out safely while keeping themselves safe. And I saw a bulletin earlier, a dispatch, let's call it that, from the JDF, in very strong language from the Vice Admiral Antoinette Wims-Gorman to say, look, do not go to sea, for if you go to sea in this hurricane, we will not be able to assist you. Right. The words are the effect of saying, we won't come and get you if you go out because it will be too dangerous for our staff. And I'm sure that's a message you want to reinforce about people in vulnerable, tricky situations have to take themselves out to give themselves a fair chance of survival.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the safety starts with you. You know, you have to ensure your safety first before anyone else. And the way to do that is to be smart about it. I remember the last hurricane, George, some people were at Pedro Keys. Remember they received to come out? Yes. And when the storms start battering them, you know, they said they felt like the world was ending, you know, and people need to be very aware of that. If you are in vulnerable places, communities, if you are close to the shore, like in the Old Harbor Fishing Village, Portland Cottage, Port Royal, you need to find somewhere to go. You can always replace the material things, but you cannot replace your life. And in fact, if you don't have a life, the material things don't mean anything anyway. Yeah. So please, 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 and remember the children. Yeah. You know, you have to protect the children.
Excellent, sir. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Dennis. All the best to you.
No problem. Thanks, George.
Dennis Chung, the chairman of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. The man says all that can be done by the response authorities has been done, and if you note, the key word in that is the response, because they are poised to respond to what happens. And he says that in terms of the prep work for Beryl, that has been done, but they really are focusing on responding quickly when Beryl passes to get things back to normal. I'm going to switch now to the director of the Met Service of Jamaica, Evan Thompson, who's been a very busy man. I don't envy him at this time, but he has stores of energy, the gentleman does, and he's just stopping by for a quick update before he goes and gets the next bulletin out. Evan, good evening once again. We've been seeing each other, hearing each other for a while, but it's the nature of the job. What can you tell Jamaicans, Evan, about where Miss Beryl is at this moment and what she's packing?
Well, she's still a Category 4 hurricane. Let me say good evening first of all. But Beryl is a Category 4 hurricane. Was a Category 5 earlier on, but has now been rebranded Category 4 hurricane. The system is continuing to move generally toward the west-northwest, but the current location is south of the Dominican Republic. It is expected to move south of Haiti during the course of this evening, going into tonight. And then as we move into the early hours of tomorrow, that's when it will start making its way. That's the center of the system, close to the southeastern coastline of Jamaica.
Yeah. And when you say the southeastern coastline, give us an idea of the parishes, for those who are geographically challenged, the parishes and parts of parishes that should be feeling the first rain associated with Beryl on Wednesday morning.
Well, the rain, what I was pointing to was specifically where the center of the system or the eye of the hurricane would be, and it would be making its way very close to the coast of St. Thomas.
Yeah.
So that is exactly where it is being projected at this time. However, the entire system, as we can see in this picture that you are showing, is really much larger than just the island of Jamaica. And so there are bands as well of rainfall that surround the system. And one of those early bands, outer bands, are likely to pass over Jamaica early in the morning, at least 1 or 2 periods of rainfall, sometimes maybe moderate rainfall in these outer bands that could start affecting us very early in the morning before daybreak, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But then as we go through the morning hours of the sunlight time, then that's when the eye is going to be much closer to the coast. And then during the morning, that's when it will be mostly impacting southern sections of the country. Whether it will make landfall, meaning that the eye, whether it will actually cross the coastline is not very sure. If you can even look at this line in the center of this cone that you have drawn here, it shows it basically touching on the southern coastline. So there's the possibility of the eye making landfall in the southern part of Jamaica, as well as it could move somewhat off the coast or even a little bit inland. So we're really watching to see exactly what direction the system will actually take.
And Evan, this one is for those who have been praying hard since the start of the week for Beryl to turn away. Based on the track that Beryl is on now, and if you compare that to where it was at this time on Monday and at this time on Sunday, has the movement been in keeping with how the scientists expected it to move, or have there been anomalies in the movement?
It has generally been following through on the forecast.
I lost Evan's audio for a moment there. We're going to try.
Sorry, I'm not
yes.
my phone this time.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Right.
I'm hearing you again. Yes, you're saying it.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, it is showing a little bit of signs of switching, not so much moving directly as was projected, but the track has been shifted slightly. Initially shifted a little bit further from the southern coastline, and at this time now shifted closer toward the coastline. So there has been some play in the actual forecast track, but generally the motion toward Jamaica is following through as planned.
And lastly, Evan, I know you have to run. Remind viewers, did the eye of Gilbert pass over Jamaica? Did the eye of Gilbert make landfall on September 12, 1988?
Yes, it did, actually. It did. We did have the center moving across us from St. Thomas all the way across to the western end of the island. I believe it exited in Westmoreland. So, yes, we did have the eye moving right across the length of Jamaica in 1988. On the contrary, Hurricane Ivan, for example, in 2004, did not actually make landfall. The center of the system actually stayed just off the coastline to the south. So this could be, either a Gilbert or an Ivan or somewhere in between where Beryl is concerned.
Yeah, and I did say last, but this is actually the last question. So you said the eye of Gilbert passed over and we saw the destruction there. Is it likely that by the time Beryl makes landfall, and given the speed at which it is moving, for how many hours should the country expect to get the full battering, given the speed at which it is moving as we speak?
Well, it is expected to make to really the center of the system will really get to us later in the morning, like mid-morning to late morning, in the vicinity of say 10 o'clock, somewhere there. But the bulk of the rainfall would have started long before then. So we should expect a lot of rainfall during the morning hours, right through the morning hours, going into the afternoon hours, until the system even passes us, heading toward the Cayman Islands. The rainfall is likely to continue over sections of Jamaica.
Hear you on that. Thank you very much, my friend. All the best, and really appreciate you sparing the time as usual.
You're welcome. Thanks.
That's Director of the Met Service, Evan Thompson, one of the hardest working men in the country at this time. Him and his team have the pedal to the metal as they keep us informed about the movement of Beryl. Well, we've heard about what's happening in the corporate area. We've been hearing about the corporate area. But what about Montego Bay, the tourism capital? What's happening out there in terms of the preparations? We'll ask the Mayor, Richard Vernon, to give us that update after this break. Back with us on Lead Story here on CVM TV. It's an extended edition. We'll extend it as far as about 6:45 when the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Michael Holness, is due to speak to the nation about the preparations that have been made ahead of the expected arrival of Beryl. You did hear Evan Thompson say this forecast track does not say conclusively whether at this time Beryl is set to make landfall, but we're going to get a lot of rain, and the hurricane is on track to go by the southeastern section of the island, and St. Thomas should begin getting the rain early on Wednesday. We've heard that, so we are set to join the Prime Minister at 6:45 for that address. In the meantime, we're going to check in with the Mayor of Montego Bay, the Chairman of the St. James Municipal Corporation, Richard Vernon, and the Force Executive Officer at the JDF, Brigadier Markland Lloyd, for their respective updates. Mayor, good evening. Good to have you here, sir.
Good evening to you and your viewers. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Good to have you here. Brigadier, good evening to you.
Good evening. Good evening to you and your viewers. Thank you for having us.
Excellent, sir. You're welcome. All right. Mayor, let me start with you. What's the update out there in Montego Bay? What have you and the stakeholders managed to do as we wait on Miss Beryl to visit us?
We concluded our meeting about 2-3 hours ago, our parish disaster meeting, and the updates came from the agencies, especially the key agencies that deal with disaster preparedness and response. And they're 100% ready, but as ready as they can. Depending on the impact of the weather system, we'll have to react a particular way, but all the necessary contingencies are in place. We have completed the clearing of the outlets and the tributaries for the major gullies and the drains. We have sent the supplies to the shelters. We have also identified and have ready the location to house the homeless persons and the most vulnerable among us. So we are putting all the necessary things together. We have our units on standby for transportation and to clear the roadways and anything else that needs to be cleared. We have the update from JDF, JCF, Fire Brigade pertaining to rescue. All of those things in place now. So we are just in the position of waiting and seeing what will happen so we can react accordingly.
Yeah, when I spoke on Monday with the CEO of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, Robert Hill, he said that there's an estimated 1,000 homeless people in the corporate area that they have made plans for. They've sent the, did he say poor relief officers or their equivalent out to do some engagement. He knows where they are and they've made plans for them specifically. I just wanted to speak to them specifically, the number of homeless in or around Montego Bay and your specific plans to assist them to stay out of harm's way as Beryl arrives.
Homelessness is something that is difficult to track, but we have 300 of them registered and we know the locations where they are, and we know where to send the units to transport them to the shelter. But as I said, it is something that is not easy to track because homelessness can be a temporary situation and it can be a very extensive situation. So based on the persons we regard as the homeless persons that are frequent on our streets and have been there for more than 30 days, we have a database of those persons and their locations. So we have the necessary things in place. And for persons who are mentally challenged, we have our psychiatric assistance that will be in the area, and the nurses to assist with the situation if they need that.
And Mayor, you know that in these difficult times, those who are indigent, the elderly folk who are in their homes, something that you and I don't need because we're young people, they just need someone to talk to in the most difficult times, somebody to call. Is there a hotline that the municipal corporation has available for people like these or their caregivers to call, get somebody on the phone to give them some emotional support through the worst of the hurricane?
We have several numbers, and the Emergency Operations Center will be activated at 7:30 this evening, and persons can call in. I don't have all the numbers with me now, but we have several numbers that have been circulating to our residents here in Montego Bay. And of course, they can call in and have a conversation, and if they are not feeling safe, they can reach out to us, and we will make the necessary arrangements for them to be transported to a shelter or to where we can carry them to some level of safety. So all these things are in place. And the list has been generated and sent in from the 17 divisions with the assistance of the councillors for the shut-in members and those who regard vulnerable persons. So pregnant women, disabled persons, you name it. So we have a list of those persons. We also have the list of the registered out there poor, and we have tabs on our infirmaries, drop-in center, and care centers. So we have all of those in set and waiting to react if need be.
Hear you on that. Brigadier, in terms of the JDF, very, very crucial role to play in this moment. I referenced in conversation with Dennis Strong in the segment before about the very strong statement sent by the Chief of Defense Staff saying to fishers who are in vulnerable areas that it makes no sense for you to stay out there during Beryl because the JDF will not be risking life and limb to send people out there to get you out when you had so much time to come into safe haven. Beyond that, Brigadier, what's the distribution of JDF personnel across the island to give crucial support to other stakeholders in the disaster coordination effort? Not hearing you, Brigadier. Do you have us muted?
My apologies.
Yes, hearing you loud and clear now. Hearing you loud and clear.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So I do want to reiterate the comments of the Chief of Defense Staff, which is very significant. I do know that over time, we have had hurricane warnings, hurricane watches, and persons have perhaps become a little bit jaded because of the last few years where Jamaica has been very lucky and has not actually undergone an event. But I would like to, as the CDS said, caution these persons who are taking this one for granted, because as all of the hurricane predictors and all of the hurricane tracks have indicated, this one is expected to have a significant impact on the JDF. on the country, my apologies. No, the JDF has always been significantly deployed across the country, primarily in an internal security operation. But the same set of persons that we have doing our internal security operations are persons who are also prepared to offer assistance to our national relief effort. The JDF is, as you perhaps are aware, one of the significant critical response agencies. And so we work very closely with the ODPEM and all the other disaster management agencies. ODPEM, of course, who is the coordinator of these agencies, to ensure that we have the people in the right place at the right time to give the response and the assistance that is necessary to provide the effect to cause us to help with the saving of life and limb of our Jamaican citizens. So we have persons wide across the country in a manner that will help to advance personal safety as we go through this event.
And Brigadier, many people just imagine soldiers, they see the men and women walking around, they have their firearms in their hand, and they restrict in their minds the work of JDF personnel just to that. Give Jamaica an idea of the range of skills that JDF personnel have under their belts and the services that they are trained to provide in times like these.
So one of the first things that the country relies on the JDF for during times of natural disasters is, first of all, this type of natural disaster is search and rescue. We have a search and rescue mandate that was given to us by the government by virtue of what we do. And our infanteers, who are primarily the ones who are on the road that people will see with the guns, and associate with internal security operations, they also have a mandate for search and rescue on land, while the Maritime Air and Cyber Command, which is responsible for both the Air Wing and the JDF Coast Guard, are responsible for search and rescue at sea and in the air. So that is our primary function that you'll find coming to fore during these times of need across the country. We also have significant engineering capability, whereby we tend to assist the National Works Agency and other national agencies, other MDAs, to ensure that the country returns to normal as quickly as possible. But we can't underscore too much our responsibility in ensuring the safety and security of Jamaicans as we go through this kind of an event, to ensure that persons who may seek to take advantage of the disruption are not able to do so. So we continue to give support to Jamaica Constabulary Air Force as one of our significant partners, so that we ensure that Jamaica continues to be safe and secure and is able to return to normalcy as soon as possible as we come out at the other end of the event.
And the cherry on top, Brigadier, what does it take for the JDF to ask you that aspect of its search and rescue operation, which involves airlifting people out of vulnerable situations, those marooned? What goes into determining that the activation of that aspect of the search and rescue?
So it usually is initiated by one of the agencies that we are assisting. They would usually get the requests coming in from their parish coordinators, but sometimes the requests come directly to the JDF. So we have our own operations center here, and sometimes we do get the response coming directly to us. We do the validation, due diligence, to ensure that it's legitimate, and if it is, then we get the authorization we go through the coordinating center, and we make the rescue as necessary. Again, it depends on the type of rescue that's required, the type of search and rescue that's required, because a maritime search and rescue generally comes directly to the JDF Coast Guard. A request generally comes directly to the JDF Coast Guard. But under these circumstances, it usually is initiated through the Emergency Operations Center, coordinated by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, and it comes down to us, and we give effect to the request as is necessary.
Thank you for that. Mayor, the issue of funding to do the work on the ground from members of your municipal corporation. Heard the Prime Minister this morning through the Information Minister, heard from her that he met with all 63 MPs this morning. He made an additional allocation, $5 million to each MP. We've heard from the local government minister that funds have been allocated at the level of the municipal corporations. Can you say with certainty that the 17 councillors in the St. James Municipal Corporation have been given what they need to do what they need in preparation for Beryl?
Well, no amount of money can prepare for Beryl. But what I can tell you is that the funding has been allocated for the drain cleaning, and this was designated for the critical drains to clean the outlets and the tributaries. So that has been going on since Sunday, and with the assistance of the National Works Agency, we have been clearing the two main gullies, the North Gully and the South Gully. So that is happening now. I know the members of Parliament are mobilizing the funds to get care packages for persons who need assistance to prepare them for the hurricane, and also for persons who will need assistance to prepare. Some of that is being procured as well. So I know that the funds have been mobilized at the local and the national level to reach the people who need assistance during this time.
Hear you on that. Mayor, thank you for your time this evening. Have to run. Brigadier, thank you for your time as well, sir. All the best to both of you.
Thank you very much. All the best to you and your staff as well.
Good, good, good. That's the Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, and the Brigadier Markland Lloyd, Force Executive Officer at the Jamaica Defence Force. Just before we go to the break, you heard the Director General, the Director of the Met Service, Evan Thompson, speak about comparisons between Gilbert and Ivan, and of course comparing them to what Beryl is set to do. On your screen now we have the track that Gilbert took in 1988 as it crossed into Jamaica from Fort-de-France in the west all the way across, in the east rather, all the way across to Kingston. So the forecast track, very consistent. So from way out at Fort-de-France, it didn't much deviate until it went to Kingston. And as Evan Thompson said, it swept across Jamaica from east to west, all the way across, and devastated the island. Gilbert is what caused a change in how we build houses, build physical structures in Jamaica. No longer the kind of material that was in vogue in the island at that time, more resilient material used. Now this is Ivan. This is, right, so that was Gilbert in 1988, September 12th to be precise. I'll never forget that. This is Hurricane Ivan in 2004. So Gilbert and Hurricane Ivan, well, this is Ivan now. Look at the circuitous route that Ivan took to Jamaica. And as you heard Evan Thompson say, Ivan didn't actually make landfall. Gilbert did, from east to west, sweeping across. Ivan did not make landfall, but passed close to the southeastern coast. But it was so powerful, Ivan, that it caused damage on land, despite not making landfall, yeah? So let's hope that Beryl stays away as far as she can. We have to go when we come back. We should be going across to the Prime Minister for his address to the nation. The serious stuff is serious now, Jamaica. Beryl is almost upon us, and it's a serious time for the nation. So much of what has been built in terms of infrastructure over the past few years is at risk, and the finance minister has been keen to say that there is money in the kitty, locally and internationally, to get Jamaica back on track quickly in the aftermath of Beryl. And it's heartening for the country to be in a position where it doesn't have to contemplate getting loans to do the rebuilding effort. The insurance facilities that have been set up over time are now poised to yield the benefits that we've invested in. And the word from the authorities is that there are funds here to get us back up and running quickly. So this is the forecast track of Beryl. Again, we say very similar to Hurricane Ivan in 1988. Ivan's eye swept across the island directly. It made landfall. On this track, Beryl is set to go the way of Hurricane Ivan, not expected to make landfall, and even so at the tip of the country, right at the southeastern tipping point. So our friends in Port Royal are going to feel the brunt of what Beryl has to offer. At present, it's a Category 4 hurricane, 250 kilometers per hour. That's the punch of the wind. And yeah, it is dangerous. The outer bands are going to produce a lot of rain. The eye isn't the only dangerous part. It's the most dangerous part. But the bands around the eye are also packing a tremendous punch. By Wednesday at 1 p.m., it should weaken to a Category 3 hurricane. Well, it's really midday, I'm being told, so you take off one off that. So it's it's midday Jamaica time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and it's set to pass by the closest point to Jamaica as a Category 3 hurricane. Remember, Gilbert was a Category 3, and it wreaked havoc that to this day, over 30 years later, we haven't quite recovered from what Gilbert did to some parts of the island as a Category 3 hurricane. So do not be comforted that a Category 3 hurricane, less than Category 5 obviously, and that it won't do any damage. The saving grace, if there is to be one, is that it is not forecast to go directly across the island, and that may prove to be the critical thing. But climate change is real. Those who continue to deny it are people who perhaps go to their bed with a tinfoil hat wrapped over their head and believe that the government is trying to get into their brains. Those who are living George Orwell's classic novel 1984 and other conspiracy theories who are denying climate change. Climate change is real, and it's because of the changing climate why a hurricane of this force, this venom, has developed so early in the Atlantic. Usually these systems develop towards the September, October, November part of the hurricane season. Not this time. These days, anything happens, and as you say, yeah, here comes the hurricane season, here comes storms packing venomous punch. So we are getting ready to send you across. Is it to the Office of the Prime Minister, Andre? Yes, to the Office of the Prime Minister, where Andrew Michael Holness will hold court as the Prime Minister. Are we ready to make that link? All right. Oh, of course, it would be remiss of me not to tell the viewers that at 8 p.m. this evening, 8 p.m., it's a big one. The biggest match, without doubt, the biggest match of the Copa America group stage so far. Brazil, with 4 points from 2 games, play Colombia, who have 6 points from 2 games. So the team that wins the game today will win the group. The Brazilians will want to win the group. Colombia have looked awesome. They will want to win the group. Both teams clash at 8 p.m. this evening on CVM in the Copa America. So yeah, big match in the Copa America, the biggest match of the group stage so far. Colombia and Brazil. It's bigger than any other match being played in any other competition right at this time. We'll take a break. When we come back, we should have the Prime Minister up on your screen, Andrew Holness. right, welcome back to Lead Story. I think we're ready for the Prime Minister, ready to make that toss over to Prime Minister Andrew Holness. And yeah, let's go. All right, we're working out a couple of kinks with our link. In short order, the Prime Minister will be up on your screen speaking to the country on this occasion of a hurricane that is potentially devastating. I think we're ready now. Let's go across.
My fellow Jamaicans, here and overseas, Hurricane Beryl maintains its path to impact Jamaica early tomorrow morning. In an emergency meeting of CARICOM heads this morning, we were briefed on the destructive impact of the hurricane on our Eastern Caribbean sister islands. We expressed our solidarity and willingness to support, even as we make our own preparations. Jamaica must take this hurricane seriously. Early this morning, the Cabinet reviewed our plans to manage the threat of the hurricane, and the caucus of Parliament was also briefed on our state of readiness and the provision for emergency response. In this special allocation of $5 million per constituency to assist with emergency cases for food and CDF. After careful review of the trajectory of the storm, the likely strength and impact, the potential threats emanating, and having been notified in writing by the Minister July 2nd, 2024. This is to ensure that all Jamaicans who are currently on the road are able to get home safely and conveniently. The details of the various orders will be gazetted, published in our media, and posted on various government websites. The situation, as you can imagine, is dynamic, and the government continues to monitor developments and will provide regular updates. The entire government and all relevant personnel are in a state of readiness to manage the disaster. ODPEM is leading the National Disaster Response. The National Emergency Operations Center, the NEOC, has been activated, and all relevant agencies are on high alert. Now, as we brace for the potential impacts of Hurricane Beryl, we also need our Jamaican household, our Jamaican family, you, to be prepared. It is imperative that we remain calm. Now, it's not a time for panic. Now, here are some very important steps that each of us should take to ensure our safety and the safety of our loved ones. First thing, stay informed. Regularly check reliable sources of information, getting your updates on the progress of the hurricane, tune into your local news stations, listen to the radio, and follow official social media channels such as the Jamaica Information Service for the latest information. The Met Service and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management will provide timely updates. Second, create an emergency plan. Discuss with your family and loved ones what actions to take in the event of an emergency. Identify your strongest room in the house, your safe room, where you can take shelter during the storm. Ensure that everyone knows the location of emergency supplies, such as flashlights, batteries, and first aid kits. This can be a particularly fearful time for our children. Take some time to reassure and comfort them and explain to them what is happening. Third, stock up on essential items. By now, you should have your emergency supply kit with enough food, water, medication, and necessities to last for at least 3 days. And this should include items such as non-perishable food, bottled water, your prescription medications, toiletries, and important documents should be in waterproof containers. Fourth, secure your property. Take steps to protect your home from potential damage. You should, by now, would have already pruned the trees around your home, and you would have secured loose items that could become projectiles in high wind. Given the projected strength of the hurricane, protecting your roof is a critical part of your preparations. Fifth, no emergency numbers. You should familiarize yourself with emergency contact numbers and have them readily available. The following numbers are crucial during this time: police, fire, and ambulance, that is, of course, 119, weather updates, 116, ODPEM, 876-906-9674, the Jamaica Red Cross, 876-984-7860, and, of course, the JPS, 1-888-225-5577. That is 1-888, call JPS. Now, during the passage of the hurricane, there may be loss of electricity and water. The emergency services will seek to restore power and water as quickly as possible. However, citizens should not seek to remove down poles or power lines or disturb water mains. Please use the emergency numbers given to report damage to public utilities and do not take unnecessary risks. Additionally, the JCF and the JDF will be fully mobilized to maintain public order and assist with disaster relief as soon as the hurricane has passed. The security forces have developed strategic plans to counter any potential threat of looting or any other opportunistic crimes during this period. Hurricane Beryl is the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record. It highlights the growing impact of climate change on global weather patterns, particularly on small island developing states like Jamaica. While our carbon emissions are minuscule, our region bears the brunt of the impacts of climate change. The hurricane further highlights the urgent need for global climate action and targeted support to enhance resilience against the escalating dangers of climate change. Your government understands that we live in a time of overlapping crises and unpredictable external shocks not of our making. This means that as a government, as a people, we must be resilient. We must build the capacity to absorb shocks and recover quickly. We have been through disasters in recent years, including a pandemic, and we have recovered quickly. We have been mainstreaming climate resilience in all our plans and programs, including the design and construction of our new infrastructure, our fiscal arrangements, and in our national security planning. We continue to build our reserves to ensure protection against both low and high frequency events. By any measure, as a country, we are more prepared than at any time in our history to handle these shocks. Nevertheless, we know that it will bring difficult times during the impact and during the recovery. However, if we bond together as a people, and each of us commits to act as responsible citizens, we can get through this and recover quickly. Let us do all we can to preserve life. Listen to the warnings. Act wisely. Put away violent response to conflicts that may occur in crises. Let's commit to being our brother's keeper. Look out for our neighbor, the elderly and infirm. Now is the time that we need community. It is a spirit of community that will pull us through. I know there are many Jamaicans praying right now. Please continue to lift up Jamaica in prayers. With the blessing of God on the vessel of preparation we have made, we will safely ride out this storm. May God bless us all and keep us safe. God bless Jamaica.
All right, that's the Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Just enough time for us to say thank you to those who contributed to Lead Story this evening. I send you across now to the news team, the dynamic duo of Stephen and Curlin.
Thank you.